Hey YouTube, Mochismo Eugene, another video from Exit Strategy. Welcome again. I'm going to discuss to you guys about the sensationalism in general, but most importantly, in domestic violence and assault on women. It is all for the most part a smoke screen, a distraction that has been able to work for decades and decades and decades and decades. And I'm going to explain to you how it is a smoke screen, and it is nothing that it seems. It is not to advocate for women. It is not to protect women. It is not so that you as a woman can be protected. Now, I'm speaking from personal experience only, nothing from what I've read. I'm also speaking intensely from my observation in life. In a week, I'll be 54 years old. About the last 25 years, I've been paying close attention to the whole idea, the whole dynamic of domestic violence and what it really means for you as a woman and what it doesn't mean for our society as a whole. It doesn't mean that the woman is protected as it seems or as it may appear. It doesn't mean that the woman will be able to seek resolve and protection and solace and peace. What this does, in essence, if you understand the real minute and sometimes extreme introductions to going to seek, resolve, protection, order of protection, for example. It starts right there when a police is called, a domestic situation has ensued. Police come out, they do what they call a protocol, which is more or less a mechanical situation. They come out, they start asking a series of questions that don't really have a lot to do with their observation. They're just reading from a script in their head. There are cues, there are signs, there's a lot of body language going on that tells them that a lot of the situations that they come upon are not what they appear to be. Now, these things get dumbed down tremendously because an average police will say, my hands are tied, I'm just doing my job. Well, part of being a law enforcement officer or anybody, just being a citizen, is a casual observer. You know the saying or the pitch that they have out here in society: see something, say something. That has fallen on its head. A lot of us in society today, most often narcissists, they see something, they're saying something. They see you, they see opportunity. And so we know how that goes. Your good is exchanged for bad. You're not as good as you are in their eyes. So when they come upon the situation, domestic violence is no exception to this. This has become a racket of financial gain for those who have. And it has been a very intense, severe psychological roller coaster for those who have not. If you don't know Bible and you don't read Bible, there's a passage in the Bible where it says, settle your matters while on the way. And in this particular chair is squeaking against leather, sorry. Settle your matters while on the way. And in doing so, you'll be able to avoid exhausting your financial. Basically says settle your matters while on the way, because if you don't, you won't be done until you paid your last cent. And that is a paraphrase. Go look at that scripture and you'll understand in 2024 what it really means, whether you're a Bible scholar or not. That makes perfect sense in the dynamics of the world we live in today. God knew before we did that if you don't settle a matter amongst yourselves and you allow other people to come in, third parties to intervene and mediate, they have found a way to pretend that they care about you. They will take a side because you need a villain and a victim. You need a villain and a victim. This is how domestic violence and the supposed advocation for it, against it, this is how it works. Now, I'm speaking from personal experience. I've been an abuser. I told you, if you haven't heard my story from the 90s, I ended up becoming a very abusive husband to my first wife, due in part because I was a full-blown functional alcoholic, and people around me, friends, would not have seen it. They actually didn't think I had a problem. So pay attention to the friends around you if you know you have a problem and you're struggling. Don't listen to outsiders. Most often it is the ones that are closest to you that will be truthful to you, if they're not a narcissist, of course. And so my wife and I went through 3 years of ups and downs, a lot of verbal, emotional, psychological, and in a couple of instances, or a few instances, I don't want to dumb it down, I can't recall how many instances we had physical altercations on some degree. And what it ended up doing for me, I ended up on the bottom of the pile. I ended up achieving 5 years in Florida State Penitentiary in '97. Thereby, when I went on to I learned to play bass guitar in prison. I learned to box, and I learned a few other positive things about just being a whole person with the absence of alcohol. And from that day, I was incarcerated in '97 to the very day that I sit here. I have not touched alcohol. I've become a decent human being in life. Nonetheless, I've gone through so much in my life, to which I think we all can probably attest to. And God has been with me all the way. I've never found a need to revert back to alcohol. So I've seen the dynamics of how this domestic violence works, in the respects that, in my case, I was the culprit. I was the aggressor. I was the villain. And in many ways, I was the villain and my wife was the victim, but not in the sense of how law enforcement, dressed things up to be initially, in the initial stage. And I'm looking at a bigger dynamic. What ended up being good for me instead of a bad situation, it really ended up being bad for my first wife, because they loaded her up with a lot of papers, orders of protection, this and that. Because they give her order of protection, I get out of jail. This is way back when this saga began. You go back home often. The partners still cohabitate together. They live together. Now, woman has a whole bunch of papers that tells her, if he breathes wrong in your sight, you call us and we'll take care of it. Now, she didn't act upon that, but it gave her the mindset that she had all of the control and there was none for me. I was to do what I was supposed to do or stay in my place. Now, this is subconsciously what a lot of times you'll have very decent human beings. In this case, I want to believe my wife was a decent human being before, the law intervened with just an overwhelming amount of what they believed was protection for her. But then they talk in the victim's ear a mile a minute. They educate them. They give them a 101 of you can do this and you can do that, and this is what will happen if he does this. Okay, understandably so. That is a comforting thing to let a woman know that she has these things available to her. But the whole dynamics and how this is approached, it actually leaves the villain, the man in many cases, out there to fend for himself. And if you, in fact, like I was, are an alcoholic or a drug addict, by just circumstances of life, of just growing into it, growing up and beginning to drink, it wasn't a trauma. It wasn't anything that I can perceive that made me that attracted me to alcohol, other than just seeing people that were out and about in the party scene. A lot of us have different stories, but I didn't resort to alcohol because I wanted to mask my problems or anything like that. But that's what it became, a medicine. So now, the dynamics of them coming out, doing this thing and piling up these things onto this individual that really just wants some protection and some peace of mind. They go over and beyond, and it becomes a sensationalized situation, as opposed to if I was, and you may say, well, what do you suggest? I'm glad you asked. Let's redesign this wheel. I've proposed a revision of that order of protection. It's written up. Actually, I wrote it up in 2013-14 while in the county jail, amidst fighting for custody of my twins, because I was just so sick and tired of the thing that I call the matrix way of doing business. So to answer that question, let's think about this. In the onset of a domestic issue, there should be, there could be, or should be, and can be, very well can be. The laws have the power to do this. But I'm going to show you why they want, after I explain to you what can be done to rectify a lot of domestics, a lot of fatalities, a lot of domestic violence, atrocities. When and if there's a domestic issue, it's almost like a traffic ticket. It must be, it will be commonplace, and it will be mandatory for this couple, whether you're the culprit or the victim, the victim or the villain, this couple's counseling of X amount of hours. Both of you. Especially if there's a pattern of this stuff that's going on. Not the woman having all of this power, all of these protections, and this man being set to the side to just figure out what's going on. If these two people care about each other, they will be willing to do this. Almost like a traffic ticket, you have to go to defensive driving school. You have to go to domestic violence counseling. And it shouldn't be named domestic violence counseling. It should be named something that is a little more liberating for both parties, if they in fact want to work this out. Because if you don't want to work it out and you're going through this back and forth, and one of you guys are being aggressive and aggressor and the other one is the victim, then there should be parameters in place, short of stacking this woman up with papers and leaving this person out to fend for himself. There should be interventions that are adopted or integrated into this situation. One in which I just pointed out, there should be a certain amount of hours that both these individuals have to mandatorily complete. And upon completing it, they should be able to go before the court and be able to both give a statement in open court as to what they've learned from what they've been educated upon and what they plan on doing going forward. Now, from their mouth to the judge's ears, that is on record. Now, when you say you're going to do something amongst people, then thereby there's a commitment there. There's an obligation. This doesn't happen in the court. What happens is they pit one against the other. They sit you over on one side of the courts. They give you an advocate. They give the aggressor the option to either get a lawyer or get a public pretender. Either or. Now you're over there and she's over there. You're in the corner. It's almost like you're getting ready to do a 12-round boxing bout. And so this is how it never will resolve itself. It actually opens a can of worms to a bigger dynamics of despair and disagreements and despair. So when you got this kind of stuff that's happening, and then two people that didn't come here to get all of this stuff that these courts have given you, but at the same time, you had a problem, you went, you resorted to them, you called the police, someone called 911, now the police are involved. So this is what comes after this. A lot of which you didn't ask for. You just wanted a little bit of resolve and peace. But in doing so, this is what you end up with. And now, not to mention the children that are drug along in this situation. There's nothing in place to educate people on the effects of how these domestic violence situations can be resolved in peaceful manners. Whether you have anger, sadness, and different things like that, these are normal emotions. But in how you exercise these emotions between one another, it needs to be an education situation rather than a criminalization situation, because that is how it's supposed to work anyway. You have to criminalize. You have to criminalize in this society. This is what pays the bills in this society. This is the matrix. We have to make this world seem more chaotic than it is. And if it isn't chaotic enough, we have to sensationalize a small matter and make it something bigger. I want to say, hands down, a big portion of our society are peaceable. But in meeting narcissists and looking up to narcissists who in fact are in positions of authority, we have traded normal for abnormal. We believe what we see in our society, what we see on the big screen, what we see on news, what we see in celebrity status, we believe that is normal. It is not normal. You shouldn't have to be running to your car with 10 or 15 bodyguards to jump in your car as a celebrity if you are a likable figure, because you're getting mobbed by fans. You should be able to walk out in the streets in peace and have people casually come up and just appreciate you. There are a lot of celebrities that are able to do this, but these celebrities most often have not found themselves playing the game of the matrix. They seem to be down to earth, normal people. They're approachable. But see, when you let Hollywood wind you up to believe that you are bigger than life, and instead of you saying, no, get away from me, I'm okay, you can protect me from a distance. If you're a likable entertainer, you're not out here throwing chaos and spewing different type of discord. You've had situations where people have stalked and people have done this to celebrities. But in most cases, if you're an approachable individual, these are not things that you need to be expecting to happen, because they just won't. And again, that has really not a lot to do with this topic, but in fact, I was pointing out that because I'm showing you where things can be sensationalized, and in the courts and in domestic violence circles, that is what is actually happening. It is sensationalized for one reason and one reason only: it's a financial gain involved. And this is sad news for some of you women out here that believe differently, but from a man's perspective that has seen both your guys' side and most often the man's side. Now that I'm out of that situation, for the most part, I can see a lot of what goes on, because I see and I observe what is going on in other people's lives with regards to this. I am a casual observer. I listen to situations where police officers come in and intervene. They're looking at what is in front of them, but they're not using a critical thought process. They're doing what is easier. They're doing what is presented to them. They're doing what makes their job fluid. They're not willing to look at what really is happening and make a determination and write that report. Not to say they need to sit down and say, well, okay, I believe this person is lying. You know, a woman can say, he grabbed me, he hit me, he punched me, with no physical scars, with no bruising, with not one mark on them. And you may say, well, okay, a mark is not visible immediately after a person is hit or punched. Well, I beg to differ. If this is a 30-minute, 45-minute situation, there will be some bruising, there will be some swelling, there will be a scar if there was a scratch, there will be a mark, there will be some type of discoloration. Who are we kidding? Who are we kidding? And there are rare cases where there will be prolonged situations where the swelling won't be readily visible, but it won't be much longer after, an hour. It's just human nature. The body, that's how the body reacts. It will show visible signs of bruising, scarring, and a scar and a scratch. Definitely, it will be apparent. And so the dramatization, a lot of times, the emotional dramatization, most of the time, because women are emotional creatures and men are physical creatures. It's just most often is the way we were designed. That doesn't have to be a bad thing. But that being the case, when a woman dramatizes and sensationalizes a situation and she is yelling and screaming and she's just inconsolable, this actually really changes the dynamics of any situation, as it should. It should cause us to pay close attention. But in trying to pay close attention, if you have someone that's hysterical and they just inconsolable and they're using all kinds of excuses. I got depression, I got OCD, I got anxieties. It distracts from what really should be observed. And what it is a smoke screen in and of itself. A lot of women who in fact don't struggle with anxiety will revert or resort to using this as a crutch or an excuse, when in fact this could be a narcissist. I don't know if cops are even trained about narcissist personality disorder. I don't think they are. I know they're not. I got a few police officer friends. I've kind of broached the subject lightly in times past. I don't as much now. But you will find that they are very illiterate to the word. What's that? And I'm not just talking about surface stuff, because I'm really watching attentively to see if they're trying to throw me off to scent. Because a lot of times a person will play dumb, like, what is that? Like they don't know what it is. And in fact, they are that very person that you're describing. But as I have broached the subject, I've been careful to see if there was a body language that gave me a sense of, are they really oblivious? And I've determined that, a handful of them are very much oblivious until you start explaining to them, well, this is a person who manipulates and pretends that they are a victim when they're not, seeking attention. And then they start to say, okay, that reminds me of my ex. And so it becomes their personal situation, but it's never them. It's always somebody they know. Which we all have that story. So these dynamics of what domestic violence is supposed to appear to be, they're not. It really isn't. And if domestic violence was something to be taken serious, and it was being taken serious, as we think and perceive it should be, you would hear of it being some accounts and balances of adopting new things in this society to bring about harmony, to bring about justice. But it's always this, we're going to take a crackdown, we're not going to tolerate. That kind of goes up there with healthcare and mental health. They put those on the level of that in order to nuzzle it in there in like a package deal. And not knowing society, we're oblivious to the fact that this is in and of itself should be top priority, as they say. But in being top priority, it should be more than just sound bites. This is the same way that they've approached domestic violence 20, 30 years ago. We've heard nothing new. We've heard nothing new that gives anyone a sense that there is something really different being done to bring about a harmonizing union between man, woman, and child. They'll look at you straight face. Yeah, man, you're supposed to love your wife. You're supposed to love your husband. If you love them, you're not supposed to do this. In a perfect world, you don't. When people have stresses, traumas, and different things in their life, they act or react. This is not justifying it, but there is a reason for everything. The courts don't want to know the reason. They don't care about the reason. You as a man, keep your hands to yourself. You as a woman are to be protected. You as a woman are never reprimanded as to your lying, as to your and even in the court order it says perjury can be it can and will be it will be prosecuted. When's the last time anyone was arrested and charged and jailed for perjury? Only in high profile cases. Hands down, over 50% of domestic violence incidents, whereas the woman has the leverage over the man, as we sit in 2024, are all lies. Because it is designed seemingly to benefit the woman. You hear that a lot. Oh, it's all the woman has all the rights. No, you don't. You don't have all the rights. You're the guinea pig for the agenda. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I am just trying to stimulate you to open your eyes. If you have issue with your husband, I pray that you try to find solace and figure it out. You need to seek independent counsel. If you don't know how to conversate and have a discussion, find a way to have someone intervene. Have a friend mediate. Take that extra step. Don't be concerned about you don't want your friends involved in your business. That is what friends are for. Your friend shouldn't be the last person you talk to after you've come from the courts with the court orders and the restraining orders. They should be the first person you go to, short of the police, short of 911, short of the courts. Thereby, you're able to intercept that potential physical altercation. Because if you can talk things out, then things don't have to escalate into physical. Looking back, I didn't, I had no interest in doing the very things that I said or I suggested that you do. But of course, I was blinded by a lot of alcohol, ego, pride, and different things. And this kind of thing just kind of snuck up on me. And I'm going to tell you though, there are a lot of us that have our